talking all things Petal Panther football. This is the Petal Panther Preview Show from El Mariachi Loco in Petal, Mississippi on SuperTalk Hattiesburg 97.3. Now, here's your host, the voice of the Petal Panthers, Mark Easley.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to El Mariachi Loco here on this Tuesday night for the Petal Panther Preview Show. El Mariachi Loco is a family-owned business offering an authentic Mexican and Cuban dining experience featuring traditional recipes. Come and visit them right here on Central Avenue, right here in Petal. We're pleased to come to you again on this Tuesday night, but not with the great news from this past Friday night. The Panthers took a loss to Northwest Rankin, 34-28, and that put them in second place in the division. Still hosting a playoff game this Friday night, but with the win would have won the region, but that's water under the bridge now. The way it came about, within less than 2 minutes, a 53-yard run by Northwest Rankin gave them a 7-0 lead, but Petal answered right back. In a little over 2 minutes, they scored on a 6-yard Easley. No, that wasn't Easley. It was Chavez Walker run. Chavez Walker had 3 rushing touchdowns Friday night. He scored on a 6-yard run, point after tied it at 7 apiece, and that's where we were after the first quarter of play. A field goal by Northwest Rankin within 30 seconds of the start of the second quarter gave them a 10-7 lead. They scored with 5:46 to go in the second quarter to take a 17-7 lead, but Petal, needing a score badly going into the locker room, had a big play to get a first-and-goal situation, then another Chavez Walker rushing touchdown, this time of 2 yards with 31 seconds to play in the half. The point after was wide left, and that left the score at 17-13 Northwest Rankin, and that's where we were at halftime. Petal getting the ball out of the third quarter, out of the locker room to start the third quarter. Not able to move it, and midway at the 7:15 mark of the third quarter, Northwest Rankin tacked on another touchdown to take a 24-13 lead, and that's where we were after 3 quarters of play. A minute and 14 seconds into the fourth quarter, Northwest Rankin added another touchdown, 31-13. They led it with just under 11 minutes to play in the ball game, and if you're Petal faithful, you may be thinking, oh, this is getting ugly. It may get out of hand, but Petal had a furious comeback. They scored with 9:06 to go in the ball game on a Chavez Walker 3-yard run to make it 31-21 once the 2-point conversion was good. And then a field goal with 4:11 to go by Northwest Rankin made it 34-21. Petal would not die, though. A minute and 4 seconds later, a 2-yard Ashley Brown run, and the point after made it 34-28 Northwest Rankin. Petal did get the ball back and had a chance to drive down and potentially score and kick an extra point to win the game, but they turned it over on downs at the near midfield at the 43, and then Northwest Rankin was able to take knees and end the game there and secure the 34-28 win. Individually for the Panthers, Caden Belton had a pretty good night through the air, 11 of 21 for 180 yards. And on the ground, Chavez Walker, leading rusher, 16 carries for 92 yards. He had those 3 rushing touchdowns. Ashley Brown had a rushing touchdown, had 14 carries for 42 yards. But through the air, and we'll talk with head coach Marcus Boyles momentarily and get his thoughts on the game as well. But through the air, Northwest Rankin was able to come up with some big plays. Petal defense did a great job making them one-dimensional and shutting down the really strong running back for the Cougars, Jeremy Hayden. He had 27 carries for only 55 yards. He averaged over 140 yards per game coming into the ball game this past Friday night. But give Northwest Rankin credit. They made some plays through the air, came up with some big plays, and came up with a stop there at the end to secure the win. And they slid into the playoffs and in the tiebreakers. They are the 4th seed and will travel to Gulfport this Friday night. The Panthers will host a playoff game. They will take on the 3 seed out of the region off the coast, Region 4, and that is the Iberville. And we'll talk about them on the latter half of this program tonight. But first, let's hear from Coach Boyles and talk a little bit about last Friday night's game and the chance to win the region, and didn't get that done, but did get the home playoff game. You know, 3 quarters didn't look great. Fourth quarter, maybe Fierce comeback came up a little bit short.
You're exactly right, Mark. Had our chances to win the region and had a really good week of practice going into Thursday night's ball game, and thought we were well prepared. Thought our kids would go respond well, and give credit to Northwest Rankin. They took it to us pretty good. I thought we did some good things at times offensively and defensively, but just couldn't sustain those drives and couldn't get off the field enough on third down on defense. Again, we made them one-dimensional, but give credit to Northwest Rankin. They hit some big throws, and so we just, got to regroup.
And you talked about the receiving core they had, especially the 6'3", 6'4" player that plays basketball as well, Deshaun Dillon. He had 8 catches for 93 yards. Didn't have a scoring. All of the touchdowns from Northwest Rankin were on the ground as well. Jeremy Hayden may have had a receiving touchdown. Anyway, Dillon did not have a touchdown through the air, had some big catches, though, and yards through the air. And his big plays, he's a matchup problem for a lot of teams. And it wasn't like we weren't defending him well. We were right there step for step with him, but he's a big old guy and has some really, really good hands, and a heck of an athlete and a receiver for them. They came up with some big plays for them.
Yeah, he's a matchup problem, and he's a lot better this year. He's been starting since freshman year. He's a junior this year, and you just see he's made a lot of improvement in his game from last year. He's a lot more physical this year. Last year, when you got a body on him, he tended to quit a little bit on you. This year, he fights through those corners, and at times, we had great coverage on him. And give credit to the quarterback, made great throws, and he came up with some big catches for him, and we just did a good job, but not good enough.
One thing that Chuck Robertson and myself noticed in the game the other night, they really let the receivers and defenders, it was a physical ball game, and let them play some. And I know it seems to always go in the favor of the offensive player, but there were some times there it looked like interference that was called on the Panthers. I don't know if they saw the second push-off, the second grab, or whatever. It looked like there were some chances there for the offensive player to have those interference calls, and by no means that difference in the ball game. But when you have a physical, when the officials let them have a physical ball game out on the perimeter, and you got those big receivers, that's tough for our defenders, isn't it?
It really is, and I agree. I thought there was a couple times we should have some offensive pass interference calls on them, but we didn't. They threw it on the defense, and as an offensive coach myself, I know, you tell your offensive guys they're not going to call pass interference on offense, and if we get 1 or 2 called against us in a year, I'm surprised. And you can just about do anything to the defender. I mean, you can push him down; it doesn't matter, and they're just not going to call it. I don't know. You just don't. That's one area I think high school officials need to do a better job of, is calling offensive pass interference, and they just don't do a very good job of that.
And again, the officials at any level, they have a tough job. I know that for sure. And it seems like you've been coaching for a number of years and talking about the officials. The pool of officials is getting shallower because you have some of these older officials retire, and there's not a lot of young guys getting in it. And that's one reason you'll see some of the games during the season move to a Thursday night, and especially as the playoffs are getting ready to start. You have a lot of Thursday night games, and then to have some of the better officials for the playoffs on Friday night. So what do you think the answer is to getting more officials into the association?
Man, that's a great question, Mark, and I really don't know. I think we need to do a better job of recruiting these guys, because they're paying them decent money now for a Friday night ball game. They're a little over $100 for a Friday night ball game, and they call a junior high, middle school, or JV game during the week. I mean, they probably 2 nights work, they make $150, $175. So it's good, but I don't know that people know that. And, I'm not sure, but we need to do a better job as coaches, trying to get some former players that, understand the game to go do it. But you said it right, Mark, that we have a lot of good older officials now that kind of on their way out. And with Thursday night, and that's exactly why we had to play on Thursday night, because some of the classifications started last Friday. And there's just not enough crews to go around, especially quality crews, to do all the ball games on Friday night.
Yeah, that's when you mentioned that pay, it got my ears perked up. I said, I may have to go earn me a little extra money. I wonder if hey, Chuck and I both do a good job of officiating up in the booth. I wonder if they'll pay us to do both things, call the game and officiate the ball game. No, but it is a thankless job for sure, but one that is vitally important, as you see at all levels, how the game has changed, how physical it gets. Is a tough game to call for sure. We'll be visiting with defense coordinator Steph McDonald on the other side of the break in the second half of this program. But when you talk about the defense, I thought for the most part, you go into, and I'll let Coach McDonald address this as well, but when you go against a team that has those big receivers like Northwest Rankin does, you have that big running back, you've got to make them one-dimensional. And then you hope to have some help maybe from them or make some plays defending the pass. The strategy going into face a team like that has a really good running back, the quarterback was good, a heady player. You alluded to that in our interview in the pregame show Friday night about how well he makes those plays. He's center field on the baseball team, and he's a good high school quarterback. Didn't make a lot of mistakes. I don't think I don't remember hardly any balls that were thrown up for grabs or whatever. He really put the ball where it needed to be, threaded the needle on the bunt. So when you're playing a team like that, and how important it is to make them one-dimensional, and is that the strategy going in?
Certainly it is. You got to make them one-dimensional, and I thought we did a great job of stopping the run. That guy is a really good running back, and I thought we did a great job of stopping the run. And certainly you could say, well, we need double cover number 2, but that's easier said than done when you got 2 other guys that can go 0 and 8 are really good players themselves. And so, if you double 2, then okay, those guys can make plays too. So, certainly, I know Seth would, if we had to do it over again, well, yeah, we'd do something a little different on the back end. But at the same time, you just got to tip your hat to Northwest Rankin. They made plays. They did a good job of executing what they did, and they don't make the quarterback hold the ball very long. He gets it in and out of his hands in a hurry, and when that happens, it's hard to get pressure on him because their passing game is really 20 yards or less. I mean, they throw it down the field a little bit, but most of it is 20 yards or less, and they love throwing the ball into the boundary. They take advantage of what the quarterback can do. He has a good arm, but not a great arm, and they don't force the ball, to the wide side of the field and where balls can get picked off.
So congratulations to Northwest Rankin. Coach Devin Cooper, his 5th year there. I think this is the first time they've made the playoffs. Good guy. There's good coaches at every level in our region. Obviously, some very good coaches, and he's a good guy too. And you're happy for him, happy for his team. Just hate it came at our expense. He's one of those guys that's been. And his team's been close to making the playoffs each year. He's been there, and this year they are in there, so congratulations to them and the effort they put forth on the road. And now it's time to bounce back. You've been Panthers, just a new season starting, and in this last minute or two here before going to the break, wiping the slate clean, getting ready for the 3rd season, basically. You got your pre-region schedule, you got your region schedule, then you got the playoffs. So another chance to get regrouped, restarted, and be focused for this next part of the season.
You're exactly right. Obviously we wanted to win the region. We didn't. We finished number 2. We get to host a playoff game, and so excited about that. I thought our kids, had a really good attitude. Lost the region, but we have a really good attitude, and I think, we're going to come out this Friday night and play really well.
All right, we will take a break in a moment and hear from some of our sponsors. And on the other side of this break, we'll visit with defensive coordinator Seth McDonald, and then come back with Coach Boyles. We'll talk playoff football in the last part of the second half of this preview show. We're coming to you live tonight, as always, from El Mariachi Loco. We appreciate you tuning in as we go a little old school over the phone tonight. Had some technical difficulty, but also taking care of us back in the studios. We appreciate him. So we'll be back after this with more of the Petal Panther Preview Show.
Now back to the Petal Panther Preview Show from El Mariachi Loco in Petal, Mississippi on SuperTalk Hattiesburg 97.3.
Welcome back to El Mariachi Loco on this Tuesday night. Not as cold as it was last night. A little cool. Getting playoff football weather, you think. It's Friday night. And it's going to be back up in the 70s, I think, during the day. And should be perfect weather for football on Friday night. Being joined now by defense coordinator Seth McDonald. And, Coach, let's just start with the question I asked Coach Boyles before the break about when you're playing against a team that is solid through the air and on the ground, and game planning for that. I don't imagine it caused you any sleep or anything. You probably slept like a baby every night, woke up every 2 hours crying, maybe, I don't know. But game planning for a team like that, what all goes into that?
Well, I'm like Coach Bowles. The first thing you got to do is you got to take away the run game and make them one-dimensional through the air. But, the good thing Northwest Rankin did is they had 2 or 3 guys that could go score and that were scared with the ball in their hands. So you really couldn't double cover one guy or the other. And, like I said, the quarterback did a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quick, which limited, what we could do pressure-wise and get him off of a spot. So that kind of was problematic for us. And we were in some good coverage at times. But like I said, when you got a 6'4" guy that can go up and high point as a basketball kid, he's going to make a lot of plays. And he played his butt off. He had the best game I've seen him play this year. So a lot of credit to them and what they were able to do offensively against us. So.
All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about your defense going into this Friday night's playoff game. I'm going to mention one name to you, and I'm going to see your face. Jordan Wally. It's no laughing matter, is it? Jordan Wally, they're all everything, quarterback, defensive back. He's a junior. He comes from good lineage. He has a brother that had played receiver and return man at Mississippi State. He had a brother that played at the University of Minnesota. And again, this Wally is following in those footsteps. We'll have a chance to play somewhere on Saturdays. But he is a threat with his feet especially. And tell us a little bit about game planning for him and what's going to take to stop him.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mark. I think in all the films that we've seen so far, the most explosive plays are when he pulls down and runs on a pass. So anything that we can do to try to hem him up in that aspect, I think is going to be beneficial to us. But, that's like most things, easier said than done. I've seen a bunch of their films, and there hadn't been many people hem him up in a phone booth. So we got our work cut out for us in that aspect. But we're just hoping that we can try to make them one-dimensional and, take away the things they like to do and try to really contain him is the biggest key. I don't think you're ever going to really get a good shot on him just because of how shifty he is. But, I think if we just do a really good job of containing him and, just what I've been telling our kids all week is try to form a bubble around him. You don't want to necessarily rush him and try to get him off the spot because he's going to pull down and be gone. And I'm not sure if we got anybody that can catch him. But I think just trying to create that little bubble around him and try to make him beat us throwing the ball, which is probably not the best thing for him to do. So.
We talk about defensively, always got to be disciplined and do your assignments and stay in your lanes and all that. And you talk about building a bubble around him and not getting upfield too much. Sometimes that goes against the defensive mindset that you have of really trying to get to the quarterback, trying to get him and sack him or whatever. You have to still play aggressively, but be wise in how you approach it and contain him. And that is the key word that I picked up on, as you said, containing him. You're not going to stop him for a whole game, but you want to contain him and limit his touches and limit his ability to make big plays, and that's the key to it, right? Just the big plays. You got to limit those.
And I think you said it kind of goes against the grain of what we teach our kids on defense. I'll pinpoint Chris Wells is one of our guys, and so this week during practice we've really been trying to ingrain that in their head just to contain him. And Chris plays at a high level and with a lot of energy, and so yesterday and today at practice we had to kind of pull back the reins a little bit on him and say, look, Chris, like when you're coming off the edge, you can't just run upfield and go get the quarterback because you're not going to be able to get him. You got to start containing him and break down and, like I said, try to make him go side to side instead of vertically. So, that's definitely an adjustment that we've been trying to make this week and limit those big plays. And, if we limit him to 2 or 3 or 4 yard scrambles, and that's a lot better than a 75-yard scramble. So that's the goal.
As I was looking at some stats on D'Iberville today, Wally throwing the ball was 81 of – only thrown it 117 times this season. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,256 yards. But he's run the ball 94 times for 742 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. That tells you right there what he wants to do, and that's as your game plan, you've got to be aware of that. One more question for you before we bring Coach Boyles back. We talk some playoffs, and we talk with you some with it before we bring him back. From the beginning of the year to now, how have you seen your defense progress? Every week you still have things to work on, and what do we need to do well besides what you've already said, containing and all. But how have you seen your defense progress this year from the beginning of the season through region play and now getting ready for the playoffs?
I think going into this year, we knew that we were going to have a pretty mature bunch on our side of the ball, on the defensive side. And so, we had some maturity back there in the back end. I think that's really helped us. I know got exposed a little bit last Friday, but like I said, I give a lot of credit to their skill guys. They had some good players. But, I think the biggest thing is just, when the defense goes, it kind of makes the whole team go. It kind of juices up the whole team. So I think that's what I've been talking to our guys about this week, is just creating that spark for us offensively and for us special teams wise, and being the enforcers and kind of getting them going. So I think just them being able to do that for us all year long has kind of been the key. And they're gonna have to go out there and do it again Friday night for us to get us going. So looking forward to seeing them do that.
I know you've been coaching for a few years, second year at Petal as the defense coordinator in there. As you get ready for playoff football, it's a win in advance, lose, pack up the equipment. I know you can't have that mentality going into these playoff games. So how do you keep the players and coaches, for that matter too, how do you not have that? But how do you keep the players from thinking, it's the playoffs, we got to win? You just try to make play by play and do the things you've been doing all year.
Yeah, I think it just kind of, a lot of people put a lot of pressure in the playoffs, and I've been trying to get our kids just to, hey, you're either going to win and you're going to advance, or you're going to lose and you go home. So, you might as well play as hard as you can and leave it all out there on the table. And so, when our kids are playing really hard, and they end up playing at a high level, and so that's key. And so I think just really emphasizing that to the kids, and and just creating the fundamentals every single day in practice of what they're going to see on Friday night is huge. And just getting them to play at a high level is the things that we're really focused on, not so much on the magnitude of the game, so to speak. But just if we do these things well, this is going to give us a great chance to win. And so just really pressing into those things.
I appreciate you. That's defense coordinator Seth McDonald. We'll bring Coach Boyles back over, and we'll talk a little playoff football. Coach, you've been doing this 30-plus years. I don't even know how many playoff games you've coached in, won, big games, first-round games. This year's team compared to last year's team, we had to go on the road to Gulfport last year, kicked the field goal in the last minute of the game, I think, to win on the road. How is this team, obviously more mature, got a lot of those players back, but mentally, what's the difference in this year's team and last year's team?
I think this year's team has a lot more confidence than we did last year, but, I think last year's team was really hungry to win that first playoff game, get back in the playoffs and all that. And I think, down the stretch, this team has kind of wavered a little bit. I'll be honest. I think we didn't finish the way we wanted to finish this season. And now it's a new season, and so everybody gets a reset. And so we just got to be ready to play Friday night. And, like I told our team on Monday, some fourth seed is going to be the number one seed. And so it doesn't really, it matters because of home field advantage. But other than that, it really does not matter where you place 1 through 4. As long as you get in, you get a chance.
This week's practice, it was windy and cold as everything yesterday. Today, a lot better weather-wise. And our health of our team, it's late in the season. You're going to have bangs, bumps, bruises, and all that. It was good to have Trey Barnes back last week, but you could tell he was a little rusty, too, on some things that at the beginning of the year, he was making some catches. He wasn't necessarily a drop, but a tough catch. He bobbled. He caught it 3 times, dropped it 4, is I think the way I described it on one of those deep balls. You can tell he was rusty. How's the health of our team going into the playoff game this Friday night? And as I said, it's late in the season. You're going to be banged up some, but overall health, how are we?
Yeah, we've got a couple of guys that's banged up, but I think everybody's going to be able to play. Some will be game-time decisions, and some may be limited in how much they play, but for the most part, really healthy. Our kids have done a good job taking care of themselves, and we've got some really good trainers. Pedro's our trainer, been here for years, and he does a great job of getting our guys healthy and getting therapy with those guys. So I think, like everybody else this time of year, everybody's got some people banged up and bruised up, but, we're ready to go and ready to have a good night Friday night.
All right, in the last couple of minutes before we get out of here, let's look at the 7A matchups in the playoffs. In the north, Tupelo is hosting Starkville. Germantown is hosting DeSoto Central. Oxford is hosting Hernando. And Horn Lake is hosting Madison Central. And those are the 4 games in the north half of 7A. In the south half, Oak Grove hosting Biloxi. And in the same side of the bracket, Ocean Springs hosting Brandon. And then in Petal side of the bracket, Gulfport is hosting Northwest Rankin. And then, of course, we're hosting D'Iberville. So looking at the south, especially Oak Grove, Biloxi, Ocean Springs, Brandon, I think that's going to be a good ball game. Brandon's getting healthy. Tyson Robinson's been hurt for the first half of the season. He's finally back healthy. So I think they're they're sort of back to their identity of feeding him the football a lot. That ought to be a good game. And Gulfport, Northwest Rankin, I think that's going to be a good game as well.
No, I agree with you. I think for the first time in a number of years, I don't know that you have a definite favorite, in the South. I think there's, any team. I really believe any team of the 8 teams, any of us can get out, and so it's just according to who plays well that night and who doesn't turn the ball over that night and wins the kicking game. And so when you look at all 8 teams, the 4 on the coast and the 4 with us, obviously there's a couple of favorites here or there, but I think when it gets down to that second round matchup, it's going to be, and I think it's going to be a toss-up. And I think even the first round games, there's 2 or 3 of those games that are just toss-ups this week.
And you've seen a number of playoff games. There's some strange things happen in playoffs. Some teams that are favored to win may not win. Some teams, as you said, there'll be, as you told your team, there'll be some 4 seeds that defeat a 1 seed this week, and that's strange things happen in the playoffs. So we'll be looking forward to this Friday night's game as the 2-seeded Panthers host the 3-seeded Warriors of D'Iberville High School. The winner of that game will play the winner of Gulfport Northwest Rankin. So when Petal wins, I said when Petal wins, they're going to be playing a team they've already played. If Northwest Rankin pulls the upset, it'll be a rematch of the regular season finale there, Northwest Rankin at Petal. If Gulfport wins, they would host because they're the 1 seed. But if it's the same seed out of the off the coast that would happen to be facing a 2-seed Petal, then Petal would be hosting because they're in the number 3 region this year. It's the lower numbered region opportunity to host. So, it should be an exciting night of Friday night football. Playoff time is always exciting as we'll follow all the classifications, 7, 8, all the way down to 1A. It is a case where the Panthers have a chance to advance this Friday night at 7 against the Warriors. We need all of you there, helping cheer these guys on. They played for this spot all year, and now it's an opportunity to host a playoff game, and not many teams do that. Only half of them do, I guess, huh? The way my Vardaman High math works, only half the teams are hosting. But opportunity to advance and go. And next week, against either Gulfport or Northwest Rankin. So win and move on. Lose, you pack it up. It's that time of the year. And we appreciate you joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you Friday night. And if not, join us on SuperTalk Hattiesburg 97.3. Appreciate Dalton Stanford directing the program for us tonight. And until next time, we'll say goodbye and good night from El Mariachi Loco, and we'll talk with you Friday night at 6:30.